going to be having the name for Mishtud. Never mind what's happening on the screen. This is because I'm sharing my screen. Don't worry about that. After and the next is in queue is going to be Mishtud again. So I'm gonna be putting everybody back on stage.
to all our speakers and those who are being live streamed to this event. My name is BEACHHEAD Rösdorfer. I'm the Director for Sustainability, Technology and Outlooks at the IEA, International Energy Agency, based here in warm and sunny Paris. We are having today, and I would like to welcome you to the CEM-11 pre-event, which has the nice title of 10 Years of the Electric Vehicle Initiative, Entering the Decade of Electric Life. So we will hear today more about the 10 years of existence and what happens next. And I will be moderating this session together with Cristiano Castagna from Karlstad. And we are looking very much forward to a couple of sessions going through the achievements and the way forward. As you can see from the title, this EV initiative is one of the most successful initiatives, I would say, from the CEM, which exists since 10 years now, this year. And we are very proud with our members on what we have achieved in these last 10 years. I think we can proudly say it's one of the most, if not the main, international platform for policy exchange on EVs, international between the governments. We have also raised a lot of global knowledge and awareness about the electric vehicle market deployment, technology advancement, and policy innovation. We are very happy at the IEA. We produce every year the global EV outlook, and we can only do that thanks to the input and the lively discussions we have with all our EVI members. The analysis we do on EVs, on electric vehicles, which we put out in the GEVO, in the Global Electric Vehicle Outlook, as just mentioned, is also part of other publications from the IEA. And I would like to mention just very recently, last week, we published our latest ETP, Energy Technology Perspectives, which is a really deep dive on all the clean energy technologies needed, not only in transport, but also in industry and other sectors for a net zero future. So today's session, we will celebrate the EVI's achievement and its contribution to global e-mobility. At the last session, we will also discuss the new decade where we can raise ambition and to ensure that electromobility makes a substantial contribution to all our energy and climate goals to 2030 and beyond. I'm very happy that we will have now, and we will show it in a second, a video which will summarize in a few seconds, minutes, the achievements of this important initiative of the EVI. The video, please. So thank you very much for the video. I hope you enjoyed seeing in a nutshell some of the campaigns and achievement of EVI. Before I will give the floor to our two co-leads, Canada and China, of this very important initiative, let me just share with you some updates. I'm very pleased that we can welcome 2 new members to the EVI. It's Poland and Portugal, and that brings the EVI membership to 15 countries from 5 continents and representing over 3/4 of the global electric car markets. We are also pleased that we have 2 new observers, Ghana and Greece, and they will be the observers for the year to come. Then another good news, Chile and Portugal are joining the EV 30 by 30 campaign. So we have 13 countries which have now signed up to the ambition to reach the collective goal of 30% EV market share by 2030. This campaign is also open to EVI partner organization and the private sector. And we can today celebrate the charging service company Fastnet as a new EV 30 by 30 supporting companies. I very much welcome all the private companies and private organizations who are part of that important campaign. And finally, last but not least, we are launching today a new global commercial vehicle Drive to Zero campaign, a new chapter in the EVI history. I will now leave the floor to the EVI co-leads, Canada and China, which have had a terrific leadership over the last years and have played a large role in the EVI's recent successes. I remember very well CEM last year in Vancouver, a beautiful city, and the organization hosted by Canada in a very, very successful way. So I'm very happy to start with Mr. Sean Tupper, who's the Acting Deputy Minister of Natural Resources, Canada. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mechtilde. That was a very kind introduction, and indeed I remember Vancouver very well, and the weather there is always much more balmy than it is here in Ottawa at this time of year, so I kind of miss it. I'm thrilled to be here to speak on this critical issue and to be here with our co-host China, and I'm very excited to kind of hear the views of the speakers on this critical issue. I'm going to start my remarks, though, by saluting kind of all the freight and the bus drivers and the transit operators who at this time in the world have kind of joined the front line of essential workers through the pandemic, providing essential services. They're delivering vital supplies in Canada and around the world. And what these people do, the efficient movement of people and goods, well, it's an essential part of a strong economy for all of us. And it's because this activity is expected to triple by 2050 and emissions are forecast to increase substantially. That's why we're here today. That's why we're talking about these technologies today. The global ambition to reduce and eventually eliminate transportation emissions is unfolding before our very eyes. It's an unstoppable ride. And we're only just getting started. Just take a look at the International Energy Agency's 2020 Global EV Outlook. There are now more than 7 million electric cars on the roads around the world compared to just 17,000 a decade ago. There are more than 500,000 electric buses in circulation. And I'm proud to say many are powered by hydrogen fuel cells from Canada's Ballard Power Systems. Every year, we see more new ZEV models and more charging stations, while innovation and ingenuity is leading a more affordable and long-lasting batteries. Credit goes to consumers demanding zero-emitting vehicles and wanting to make a difference, and visionary automakers and other manufacturers expanding EV options, and major corporations in Canada and around the world that are electrifying their fleets. At the same time, governments at all levels are bringing ambitious regulatory and fiscal measures to stimulate this EV rollout. It was a decade ago that CEM co-launched the Electric Vehicles Initiative. Our goal was to encourage EV policy innovation and public-private collaboration while ensuring the electrification of transportation was elevated to the attention of energy ministers around the world. The Government of Canada is proud of our contribution to this effort. Domestically, we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars to help ensure that all new passenger cars sold in Canada by 2040 will be zero emission. We're making these vehicles more affordable for Canadians by offering purchase incentives, establishing a coast-to-coast network of charging and refueling infrastructure, as well as charging where Canadians live, work, and play. We're providing tax breaks for businesses purchasing zero-emission vehicles. But we need to do more. The pandemic has sent the global economy into one of the deepest downturns ever known. This could have killed our momentum. But no, instead, the pandemic has been an accelerant for many of the global energy transformations we know will be required to reach our net zero goals. Electrification is at the heart of global actions to build back better. The challenge before us is great. How do we reduce emissions for medium and heavy duty transportation? Today, as we launch the CEM's new Commercial Vehicle Drive to Zero campaign under EVI, I can say confidently, Canada is ready to roll up its sleeves and play a leading role. Canada was the first country to sign the Commercial Vehicle Drive to Zero pledge, along with the province of British Columbia and the city of Vancouver, representing our three orders of government, on the same day. But it didn't end there for us. We will leverage our strong partnership with CalSTART, which for years has played a vital role in this transition, and we will forge new strategic partnerships to continue to lower the emissions from medium and heavy duty transportation while ensuring its competitiveness. The momentum continues to build. Today, together with China as co-lead of the Electric Vehicles Initiative, I'm pleased to welcome Chile, Finland, Germany, Japan, Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden as part of the new CEM Drive to Zero campaign. It's clear that the EV revolution is surging ahead. I call upon other countries, subnational governments, and the private sector to join us in the campaign. We need to take this unprecedented moment to harness our combined will, expertise, and financial resources to forge a new path to a cleaner, more resilient transportation future. Thank you, and I now look forward to hearing from the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sean, and thank you very much also for the update on all the efforts Canada is doing on e-mobility and broader in the clean energy space. I will now turn to Chen Linhao, who is the Deputy Director in the Ministry of Science and Technology in China. He's excused. We will hear a video, but I know that Chen Linhao was very instrumental also in CEM when it took place in China a few years ago. So we are happy to listen to Chen Linhao now via his video message.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to join you online at today's event, 10 years of EVI, entering the decade of electric drive. Since CEM-1 in 2010, China has been working together with other CEM members and International Energy Agency to build EVI into an important platform for global exchanges and cooperation in electric vehicles. The past decade has witnessed fast growth in EV globally. In 2010, the global EV market was still in its infancy, with only 15,000 EV ownership. In 2019, global EV ownership hit 7.2 million. Global EV sales grew from less than 8,000 in 2010 to 2 million in 2019. EV technologies have witnessed giant leaps in the past decade. EV range has jumped from less than 150 kilometers in 2010 to 300 to 500 kilometers or even higher today. The cost of power batteries has dropped further from 5 to 6 yuan per watt hour in 2010 to only 1 yuan today. The charging time for EV has shortened, and ultra-fast charging has been possible for some. New technologies have promoted EV commercialization globally. More importantly, over the past 10 years, countries have reached agreement on the future of vehicle electrification. Driven by technology innovation and guided by preferential policies, electric vehicles have grown from something new into a reliable partner in people's life. EVI has witnessed remarkable progress over 10 years. The global EV outlook has become an important reference for the EV sector. Shanghai International EV Demo Zone plays a significant role in the early stage technology guidance, application of new business format, and public promotion. EV 30 at 30 campaign and PCP have received international support and facilitate application of EV around the world. Today we are going to launch a Drive to Zero campaign to back electrification of medium and heavy duty vehicles. The COVID-19 pandemic reminds us once again that we are one community with a shared future. Only with synergy can we stand the test of global risks and challenges. The Chinese government highly values the role of CEM and EVI and look forward to policy exchanges and pragmatic cooperation with international partners to contribute to the development of EV in the next decade.
Thank you very much for the message, and thank you very much both Canada and China for that great leadership and co-leadership for this important initiative. Now I will let to Mr. Cristiano Fassagna, who is the Global Director at Karlstad, who will take over the moderation of the next session, which will be about the launch of the Drive to Zero campaign. Cristiano, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mechthild, and thank you, the Clean Energy Ministerial and IEA for the kind invitation. And it is with immense pleasure to announce a new Clean Energy Ministerial campaign under the Electric Vehicle Initiative. So we call it the Global Commercial Vehicle Drive to Zero, or Drive to Zero, just to shorten it. So Drive to Zero will enable greater deployment of zero and near zero emission commercial vehicles, including trucks, buses, and other heavy equipment. So the campaign builds on the Drive to Zero program by CalSTART, which already counts on over 80 partners, including government and industry leaders. So we're definitely not starting from scratch. So the campaign also leverages incredible market momentum. So today there are over 500,000 electric buses and over 12,000 heavy-duty electric trucks operating worldwide, most of them in China, but other regions are rapidly implementing the policies and the supportive incentives to accelerate their deployment. Canada alone has committed to 5,000 zero-emission buses on the road in the next 5 years. California has adopted a regulation that requires all new buses to be zero emissions by 2029 and all buses on the road by 2040. For trucks, California recently required that 40 to 75% of new trucks to be zero emissions by 2035, depending on the truck category. Plus many other nations, such as the Netherlands, have announced zero emission zones that restrict vehicle operation to zero vehicle emissions only. So the campaign also recognizes the disproportionate impact that medium and heavy duty vehicles have on the environment. Although they represent just under 5% of the global on-road fleet, they're responsible for over 35% of climate emissions and over 60% of PM 2.5 emissions from road transportation globally. So the campaign addresses climate change and air pollution while investing in industrial development and clean technology jobs. So now I would like to share a short video that we prepared to introduce the new Clean Energy Ministerial campaign under the Electric Vehicle Initiative.
Drive to Zero unites policymakers, truck and bus manufacturers, commercial fleets, and innovators to advance the global zero-emission commercial vehicle market. Medium and heavy-duty vehicles are responsible for more than 35% of greenhouse gas emissions from road transportation globally. With rapid growth in e-commerce, delivery truck emissions will only increase. Cities will be impacted the most, as more than 60% of road transport pollution comes from commercial vehicles. Drive to Zero is a strategic international initiative designed to speed the growth of zero-emission and near-zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles.
Transport is the fastest growing emission sector, and we need to address that. We will commit to go 100% zero emission for our last mile deliveries by 2025.
Dealing with air pollution and climate change is now fundamental to everybody's business.
Drive to Zero uses a technology commercialization strategy that identifies the market segments where near and zero-emission technologies are likely to succeed first. We call these beachhead segments. When we invest in and grow these beachhead segments, like urban bus applications, where vehicles travel along predictable routes, the advancements in zero-emission battery, powertrain, and component technologies drive growth in subsequent segments with larger, higher capacity, longer range, and more specialized vehicles. If the world works together on the timing across these segments, leading regions can quickly create ecosystems of success by aligning vehicle deployment with supportive policies, vehicle incentives, infrastructure investments, and pilot projects. Coordinating these ecosystems builds scale, strengthens supply chains, reduces vehicle costs, and accelerates the global market for adopting zero-emission commercial vehicles. Together, we have the plan, the network, and the power to transform the global commercial vehicle market to drive to zero. Please join our growing partner network and help us succeed in increasing clean transportation jobs, clearer air, and a clean climate.
So I hope you liked the video. And today is a very exciting day for us since we have many new nations joining Drive to Zero. So I would like to second Canada and China as co-leads of EVI to welcome Chile, Finland, Germany, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, and Sweden to Drive to Zero. So next we have the honor to hear from 4 distinguished speakers. And I'll please ask each of you to be mindful of the allotted time since we have a very packed schedule here. So I would like to start with Ms. Stintje van Veldhoven, Minister for the Environment in the Netherlands. So please take it away.
Thank you very much. And it's a great day for me to discuss with you the Clean Energy Ministerial Drive to Zero. We are currently opening our parliamentary year today in the Parliament, discussing all of the new plans for the new year, and sustainability is largely in them. And so it's a great day to be here with you today. We are very proud to support the CEM Global Campaign Drive to Zero, because helping to speed up zero-emission commercial vehicles worldwide is priority in building a less vulnerable and a more sustainable logistics system. And none of us can do that alone. We need to work together to actually drive that market. So why commercial vehicles? We are seeing a market shift on passenger vehicles, and this is good and necessary. But for commercial vehicles, trucks and buses, there's still much to be done. Not only in getting the right vehicles to the market, but also in making sure that charging and refueling infrastructure will be ready in time. Road freight emissions represent a large portion of CO2 transport, like you just said, and they could double by 2050 due to continued growth in freight demand. So zero-emission commercial vehicles are really key to curb increasing freight emissions, mitigate climate change and urban air pollution, and spur technology innovation. And that is why, like I just said, none of us can do that alone. That is why this campaign Drive to Zero is so important. So what do? We are accelerating the transition to zero-emission commercial vehicles through a clear government vision. I think that's going to be key in all our countries. On the way to fully decarbonize transport in line with the EU and Dutch climate goals in 2050. In the Netherlands, we need to reach at least 49% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions by 2030. And this includes logistics. So for logistics, we agree that by 2025, the 30 to 40 largest cities in the Netherlands will indeed introduce zero-emission zones for logistics. And this means that only zero-emission vehicles for city logistics will be allowed in those inner cities. helping also to clean up the air for all those people living there. Furthermore, we understand the transition to zero-emission vehicles will start in specific niches, and the government can really also play a key role as a launching customer. So we, countries, cities, and companies, together, we can show that it can be done. It's not the future, it is the present. We can show leadership by bearing the initial extra costs together and drive those cost curves down. For example, we are taking green investments in our own fleets, such as all public transport buses to be zero emission from 2025. That's all the new buses, but all buses will be zero emission by 2030. Currently, we almost have about 1,000 zero-emission buses on the road, and we are hoping to increase that number. All target group transport, some could say small school buses, which are contracted by local governments, will also be zero-emission by 2025, and we're purchasing zero-emission cleaning vehicles, ranging from large lorries to collecting domestic waste to smaller street cleaners used to clean the inner cities. So cooperation is key. We need to work together, raise ambition, and accelerate action. Regionally, for example, with the EU Green Deal, but also across regions. As the Netherlands, and I am allowed to do that for the Netherlands, is currently chair of the Transport Decarbonization Alliance, we also chair a worldwide platform of front-runner countries, cities and companies, the 3 Cs, in the race to decarbonize the transport sector together, one of the most carbon-emitting sector. And like today, the Clean Energy Ministerial offers a platform for cooperation. We face several challenges, many challenges, and international cooperation is key. The EVI countries signing this pledge to Carlside Drive to Zero campaign are taking an important step to help shift the focus to freight and commercial vehicles. I would say to all of you, don't be afraid of freight. Let's go for it. It is crucial to reach our climate goals and secure the world for the next generations. We are the first generation to know what must be done. We're also the last generation that has the opportunity to change something. And we can only do that together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stinje, for such inspiring remarks, for your continued support to the Transport Decarbonization Alliance, for your leadership and vision, and in particular for joining Drive to Zero. So next, I have the honor to invite my colleague Francisco Lopez, Vice Minister of Energy in Chile. Please, Francisco.
Hi, Cristiano. Thank you, and thank you all the organizers of this activity. In Chile, we are reducing the emissions associated with our energy sector as part of our decarbonization strategy. Our goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. This goal is a challenge given by the need to reduce our dependence on imported fossil fuels. However, I think that electromobility is a key element to accomplish this goal, since 17% of the carbon abatement is expected to come from this sector. Today in Chile, more than 36% of our consumption is used in the transport sector. 99% of this energy mostly comes from imported fossil fuels sources, and 82% is used by land transport. Additionally, the sector is responsible for the 24% of the generation of greenhouse gases. In the country, in this context, electromobility is one of the 4 axes in which we are working on to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. The electromobility has remarkable benefits. Therefore, our focus is also in the decarbonization of the electrical grid, which will deliver greater benefits in environmental terms as we electrify our transportation system. Regarding the economic benefits, it is clear that the electromobility brings operational cost reductions. For this reason, we focus on promoting replacement of fleets or intensive use vehicles to improve transport and generate mobility solutions. Firstly, we launched in 2015 the 2050 energy policy, which established a guideline to improve the energy efficiency of vehicles and their operation, including energy efficiency standards for the fleet of new vehicles. The energy efficiency law currently under discussion in Congress will aim to implement these efficiency standards. Secondly, in 2017, we launched the National Electromobility Strategy, whose purpose is to outline the actions that Chile must undertake in the short and medium term to ensure both 100% of electrical urban public transport vehicles and 30% of electrical private vehicles by 2040. For example, the Ministry of Transport has led the efforts to have the largest e-bus fleet outside of China in our capital of Santiago, with more than 700 full operational buses. Finally, the 2018-2022 energy roadmap launched in 2018 include the strategic goal of promoting an efficient transportation by having at least 10 times more electrical vehicles circulating in the country by 2022. To date, we have made important progress toward this goal. From December 2017 to July 2020, the number of EV electric vehicles have multiplied by 6.5. The policies and initiatives above mentioned are the base of our alignment with the EVI 30 campaign as part of our participation in the electric vehicles initiatives. Our commitment to electromobility is part of the Sustainability Energy Agency Aceleradora program, an e-mobility accelerator that supports companies to strategically integrate electromobility into the enterprise business model, as the Giro Limpio program, which recognizes and certifies the freight transport companies' efforts in the field of the sustainability and energy efficiency. In this slide, our Ministry of Energy will support and sign the pledge of the Drive to Zero program to strengthen the development of electromobility and energy efficiency in the transport sector. We're aware that in order to achieve the decarbonization of the transport sector, it's necessary to broaden our knowledge on the field. So we expect to continue learning the best practices and experience from the EVI 30 at 30 campaign and Drive to Zero program. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Francisco, for the great remarks, for joining Drive to Zero, and in particular for laying the ambitious vision and foundation for many other fellow Latin American countries to join forces with us. So now I'd like to invite you, Ragnar Orseth, State Secretary for Transport in Norway. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Cristiano, and hello to you all, dear friends and colleagues. By 2020, actually, we have reached another milestone in Norway. In fact, this year, more than half of all the new cars sold in Norway are electrical vehicles. When I'm speaking to people from other countries regarding our policies on electrical vehicles, I used to say that I think we all often recognize politics as doing small adjustments on specific issues. We are raising some taxes, we are lowering some taxes, we're having some programs, but not only with the strongest incentives, but we always, as politicians, have very high rhetorics on our politics. But when it comes to the Norwegian policies on electrical vehicles, we decided many years ago to really speak with capital letters. We wanted to make the incentives for buying and using electrical cars as strong as possible. So we decided there should not be any VAT on electrical vehicles. No taxes on when you're buying a car, no payments for public parking. We allow the electric cars to drive on the public transport lanes in and out of the bigger cities. And we also have a situation in Norway where most of our electrical power comes from clean hydro power, which of course is a good thing when you want people to move from fossil fuels to electrical fuel. After all these years, we are now in a situation that, as I said, more than half of the new cars sold are electrical, and we are still the third biggest market on electrical vehicles in the world, which is a position that I hope that we lose, because Norway is a quite small market globally. So I really hope that many of the bigger countries around the world can take that position away from us. What I think we have realized is that while having these very strong incentives incentives that really shouts to people that you should buy an electrical car. After a few years back in time, we really felt that, as we can say, on our part of the globe, we realized a kind of a snowball effect. You know, when a snowball starts to roll, it really gets bigger and bigger. And when it comes to who are the main influencer in people's lives, well, it's your friends, it's your neighbors, it's your family. And when we reached a certain level of electrical cars among people, when you met family and friends, there was always one guy, one of the families who had bought an electrical car. And when ordinary people become ambassadors for other people's, for their families and friends, then we can really have a tremendous growth of electrical vehicles among us. And we are definitely not in goal. We want to reach further, and we have put up political goal for our government, and there's a broad political support for it, that by 2025 we want to see all new city buses, passenger cars and light vans as zero-emission vehicles. And by 2030 we have a goal that says that all new heavy vans, 35% of new long-distance buses and 50% of the lorries should be zero-emission vehicles. And I think those goals are to believe in, because now everybody in Norway realizes that an electrical passenger car is not something very exotic and funny anymore. It's actually a part of our daily life and our daily transport, and also the goals then for introducing more electrical vehicles among lorries and buses and light vans are really reachable. So that is our plan for the coming years, and we really love to be a part of this global initiative. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Jon, and Norway for walking the talk, for being a world leader in the deployment of electric vehicles, and in particular for joining Drive to Zero. Thank you. So now I'd like to present a short message from Anders Ygeman, Minister for Energy and Digital Development in Sweden, who unfortunately couldn't be here with us today, but kindly left us a message.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by congratulating to the 10 years anniversary of the Electric Vehicles Initiative, EVI. It is an important platform for accelerating the clean energy transition in the transport sector. Sweden has high ambitions. Our efforts on electrifying the transport sector is necessary in order to reach our national target of 70% less greenhouse gas emissions in the transport sector by 2030. Today, we have the #1 market share of plug-in electric passenger cars in the European Union, and in new car sales, 3rd globally. We have a policy framework in place to promote the electrification of road transport, which also addresses for heavy-duty vehicles. And our purchase subsidies for e-buses will be extended to also include e-trucks and working machines. And I am happy to announce that Sweden will join the Drive to Zero campaign, focusing on heavy-duty vehicles. Other ongoing initiatives in Sweden is investment support to charging infrastructure deployment, both depot charging and public charging. In Sweden, regional clusters have started developing a fast charge infrastructure network. Let me also mention the Swedish Electric Transport Laboratory, CEEL, an area for research and development of new technologies for electrified vehicles, vessels, aircraft and construction equipment. CEEL will fulfill a function as test facility for the entire development process. From research and innovation of components and systems to testing of complete electrified vehicle and propulsion concepts. The purpose of the initiative is to strengthen the conditions for cooperation within electromobility. In December 2019, the European Commission approved state support for CEEL within the framework of an IPCEI. The transport sector is transforming rapidly, and I look forward to follow the work to be done in EVI during the next 10 years.
So I'd like to thank Sweden for the relevant remarks, for your continued leadership and ambition vision, and also for joining Drive to Zero. So again, I'd like to thank the Netherlands, Chile, Norway, and Sweden for the excellent remarks and for joining the Drive to Zero campaign. But now I'd like to introduce two panel speakers with representatives from Finland and Germany, which have also joined the Drive to Zero campaign. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Riku Huttunen, Director General of the Energy Department with the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment in Finland, and Dr. Gerion Meyer, Head of Department of the European and International Business Development with VDI, VDE Innovation Technology, on behalf of the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. So both of you, welcome. And I'd like to ask two questions to our panelists. And so the first one is about the main policies and actions that your country is undertaking to accelerate zero commercial vehicles. And the second one is the rationale behind joining the new Drive to Zero campaign and what you expect to contribute and to gain from the campaign. So since we have a very packed schedule, please ask each of you to keep your answers to 2 to 3 minutes. That would be great. So, so Riku, if we can start with you, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and hello to everybody. Finland has set an ambitious objective to become climate neutral by 2035. It means that we have to reduce emissions very fast. We have to drive to zero in almost all sectors of the economy. We have excellent knowledge of advanced liquid biofuels and biogas for transport. These products are needed also in the future. Climate-friendly biofuels can be one of the solutions in heavy-duty transport as well. But currently we are focusing on electrification, and this includes driving emissions down in commercial vehicles as well. We are developing industrial-scale solutions to produce electrofuels. To do that, we need to put some legislation in place and find the right tools to finance deployment of clean hydrogen production and carbon capture, among others. Also, EU rules are to be clarified on those dimensions. In addition, we are developing various parts of sustainable battery value chain, from ore mining to recycling, to enable direct electrification of transport nationally and globally. There is also a variety of actions done to support demand of zero-emission vehicles. For example, taxation policy takes into account emissions. Also, public procurement is an important policy tool to boost demand. Investments in clean transport, such as electric vehicle infrastructure, is part of the Finnish government's COVID-19 recovery investment package to be included. So we will step on the gas and accelerate our drive to zero. It's great to do this together with the CEM community. On why we are joining the campaign, well, it's a very timely campaign, and it is necessary that this topic of commercial vehicles gets attention also in the clean energy ministerial community. Finland joins the campaign because heavy-duty transport is an area where we need to develop and disseminate information about new low-carbon solutions faster around the world. I'm sure that during the campaign we will learn about interesting examples of developments around the world, both technical and regulatory innovations. And finally, Finland would be happy to share its best practices through the campaign actions, such as developments of climate-friendly fuels or deployment of zero-emission buses in Helsinki region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your support and for joining the campaign. Really appreciate it. So, Dr. Meyer, would you like to share your thoughts on behalf of Germany?
Yeah, Cristiano, thank you very much. And first of all, congratulations to this great campaign. And I'm happy to let you know that Germany is indeed joining that campaign. As you're asking about the measures and most important policies for commercial vehicles to become zero emission, maybe the most important thing I'd like to make you aware of is that in Germany we are pretty much putting an emphasis on pull measures. So meaning financing tools, stimulation tools. And I think that's also easy to understand because we are talking about a technology that for, say, a 6-ton truck to run for 1,000 kilometers through Europe still is not yet fully mature. It is developing at rapid speed for sure. And you can imagine that a country like Germany, which has a strong engineering base and also an important industrial base in the automotive sector, needs to find a good way of how to stimulate that development and make sure we can still have a leadership role in that. And the measures that have been taken, therefore, are very much in the area of funding of innovation. Knowing that if we would not do anything, we probably would have higher costs at a later stage in many aspects and respects. The most prominent example of the electrification of commercial vehicles is probably what you may have seen in the media. It's looking like this, right? So it is the demonstration of an electric highway system on the A5 Autobahn close to Frankfurt. It's a 5-kilometer strip, both directions, equipped with overhead wires from Siemens and with trucks with those pantographs in order to get the electricity from the wires that are operated and have been built by Scania. It is still not the only activities that are funded and that are stimulated in terms of innovation and technology development in that area. I should also mention bus electrification here, which is developing at rapid speed now in many cities. New hybrid, in particular, also fully electric buses have been put into the fleets. And also for truck electrification, there's a strong emphasis on developing the battery technologies, swapping systems, battery cell technologies for high powers and high capacities. Regarding recent developments, and we are talking about COVID-19 measures in this context a lot, and let me make you aware of the recovery program of the German federal government that was released recently, and that is putting quite an emphasis on sustainable mobility. And in that, for sure, the electrification of buses and trucks is having an emphasis. In addition to that, hydrogen has been put into the equation, so hydrogen and fuel cell technologies. All that said, what Germany is doing is actually trying to demonstrate, develop, and further elaborate on all different kinds of technology solutions that make sure that electricity and energy from renewable sources can be put also into heavy-duty and commercial vehicles.
Thank you very much, both panelists, Finland and Germany, for your insights and support to EVI and the new Drive to Zero campaign. And as final remarks, I am delighted to join Canada and China as co-leads at EVI in welcoming all these new nations to the Drive to Zero campaign. I'd also like to encourage new nations interested in advancing the market for zero-emission commercial vehicles to also join the campaign and leverage this great momentum that we're having today. So in addition to these nations joining the campaign, I would also like to note the importance of industry participation at Drive to Zero. It's only by aligning government policies and accelerated manufacturing with fleet demand that we'll be able to accelerate the market for zero-emission commercial vehicles and achieve full market transformation. So as a segue to our next panel with industry representatives, I'm also proud to announce that Scania has joined our Drive to Zero campaign and committed to working together to accelerate this market for zero-emission commercial vehicles with all these new nations. So in the next panel, I'm looking forward to hearing from both Scania and the Inca Group, who are both partners of Drive to Zero. So now I would like to hand it back to my co-moderator, Mechthild, to continue the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cristiano, for this excellent session on the launch of the new campaign. Let's continue that debate on the decarbonization of medium and heavy-duty vehicles. We heard that there's a lot of progress and that there's a strong interest for many governments and industry. So in order to look what more can be done, because there is still pace for acceleration and more deployment. We know that there are still only under 1 million of electric vans, trucks and buses now on the street. And at the same time, we know, for example, that trucks, who are 6% of the cars on the street, or 6% of the road vehicles, they emit more than 30% of emissions. So there's a strong need for electrification, and we want to accelerate this path. So how can we do that? What can we learn from companies, from industry, from governments? I'm very happy that we have a very distinguished panel to discuss that question, and we had a few questions to guide the debate and the statements. And these questions were around: what do you believe? Where do you see the most rapid adoption of zero-emission vehicles? Which are the vehicles type? What are the most promising technologies? We already heard from the previous speakers, hydrogen and other technologies, but how do you see them compete or complement each other, and what policies will be key? So you have 3 minutes to make your statement, and I would like to start to give the floor to Alexander Vlaskamp, who's the Executive Vice President and Head of Sales and Marketing at Scania. We already just heard that Scania joined the new initiative, the new campaign, and Scania is certainly a big player in that market. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Mechthild, and distinguished panel. Thank you very much for this great initiative. At Scania, we are part of the ecosystem of transport and logistics, which is accounting for up to 25% of the global emission level of CO2. So at Scania, we have the purpose to drive the shift towards actually a sustainable transport system. And as a ground-based at Scania, we have signed up here to the science-based targets, reducing the carbon emissions significantly on our vehicles, but moreover also on our production system, so that we come to a true zero emission vehicle, not only when it's in operation, but also when it is produced, and moreover when it is also in the recycling base. We have very fuel efficient trucks, and fuel efficiency is one of the important parts of our customers to make sure that they have a profitable operation. So always it is for us an ecological as well as a monetary unique selling point for us as well as for our customers towards their customers. Speaking about our customers also here, there is a genuine interest nowadays to understand what is actually the long-term trajectory of coming to zero-emission vehicles. And we are very proud to announce that we not have a silver bullet, but first of all, we have a bullet which comes very close. And that is yesterday we have announced our first fully electric trucks, which is a heavy distribution truck capable to do a 26-ton distribution, which can operate in a typical distribution segment of up to 350 kilometers a day. Once throughout the day, as typically a distribution vehicle is stopping 6, 7, 8 times a day for loading and unloading. You charge and you can definitely fulfill your routings. This is a launch we made yesterday for products available from Q1 2021. Also, as I mentioned before, there is no silver bullet. There is also a demand for intermediate steps, like a plug-in hybrid electrical vehicle, whereas one can have up to a 37-ton operation. And for this, we have then a plug-in hybrid, which can do up to 60 kilometer electrified, for instance, for zero emission delivery in towns, but also to provide night shift deliveries, because doing transport zero emission is not only to do the same with the same fleet, but also where we believe one can optimize the fleet. And if we can optimize as an industry also the delivery and utilization of the significant higher capex which an electrified vehicle will have, for instance, during nighttime deliveries, so we can operate a truck instead of with one driver 8 hours a day, 16 hours a day, this will definitely come much closer than to the operational cost base our customers and our customers will accept and also will adopt then earlier and faster over time. The other part is definitely the support from the different governments, and also here we would like to see in Europe, of course, an aligned support both on investments as well as also on road tax advantage for customers operating then with zero emission or near to zero emission vehicles. And moreover, it will be not done by just a knip of the fingers. It will be also possible to do a transition over time by the support and uses of biofuels, whereas Scania has the widest range operating from HVO, diesel to biodiesel to biogas, as well as to ethanol vehicles, what is available in the different regions in Europe. As example, in the southern part of France, we have a bus operation which is running on ethanol residues from the wine grapeyards. So when there is a good wine a year, there is also good ethanol available for the Scania buses to use, also on a zero emission base. And by that, I really encourage the panel and the politicians to align and support the industry in Europe to accelerate here.
Thank you very much, Alexander, and thank you for your input and all what your company is doing in that field and for sharing that with us. My next speaker on the list is Ed Daniels. Ed is the Executive Vice President for Strategy at Shell. The floor is yours, Ed.
Mechtel, thank you very much indeed. I hope you can hear me well from my isolation here in the UK. I had 5 things that I really wanted to try and get across in this session, if I may. In Shell, we're committed to net zero emissions 2050 in Europe. We're committed to driving and being part of this sort of very significant energy transition that we need to make happen. That commitment goes, into how do we help with our customers drive the full decarbonisation of the energy system, and we want to play our full and active part, and of course we will want to invest in that. Third point I want to make is that this has to be done sector by sector by sector. There's no sort of single blanket prescription, I think, for decarbonising the energy system, whether we're talking about transport, whether we're talking about industry, or whether we're talking about the built environment. And even within transport, if I think of the differences between light-duty vehicles, medium-duty delivery vehicles, and heavy-duty long-range vehicles, I think there are different prescriptions, and we need to think carefully about how that happens. From my perspective, in the light duty, medium duty, and in the sort of delivery type segment, I can see battery technology as that improves, making a significant contribution. However, when you get into heavy duty and very long range trucking and distribution, I do think it becomes a real challenge with the weight of batteries, with the range issues that you get, that an alternative energy carrier is required. Now, I think there will be short, medium, and long-term solutions to that. I think in the short to medium term, there's the potential for bio-LNG, biogas to play a role in decarbonising long-range trucking. But in the longer term, certainly at Shell, we're very keen and very committed that hydrogen is the key energy vector that can drive the decarbonisation of heavy-duty trucking. We're very prepared to invest in the manufacture, distribution, and then ultimately the delivery of hydrogen for networks. We've already got a significant network in Europe. We've got a network in California. We'll continue to invest in those networks. I think that's a significant part of the chicken and egg problem that we have about will the vehicles be there, and then will the supply of hydrogen be there? And hopefully we can help to unlock that by making those pre-investments. And the final point I would make to you is that, of course, government and regulators have a very significant role to play here in telegraphing their intent, that in seeing, for example, tailpipe regulations, making sure that we have standards that would augur towards very, very low or zero emission vehicles that then incentivizes moving down the route towards hydrogen. I think that's an important part of it. And also the second point I'd make for governments is that they have a role in public procurement, and whether that's in buying of delivery vehicles, vans, trucks, buses, etc., they can signal and telegraph to the industry their intent in terms of how they see the decarbonisation of the energy system overall, and in particular here around transport. I'll probably leave my formal remarks there, give other people time, and come back in perhaps in Q&A later on.
Thank you very much, Ed, and thank you very much also to highlight the role of Shell in the net zero debate, but also in the different segments of the heavy duty and the lighter duty, and interesting enough, what can be done more in the hydrogen space. Let me now turn to Young-Tae Kim, who is the Secretary General of the International Transport Forum. The ITF has launched yesterday a new report on regulations and standards of clean trucks. So we are very glad that we have you here and listen to your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And maybe leaving the technical aspect to other experts on technical side, and I will more focus on the policy side, because ITF is composed of 62 member countries, and basically we are publishing a lot of research papers for policymakers. And I think a zero emission car or fuel efficiency car is greatly influenced by the function of the government's determination, and also the technological development, for example, the battery, the technology, and also the question of having the final product as the market product that can be really favored by customers. So this kind of complicated function can really influence the outcome of the problems that we have faced today. And if we talk about the government side, maybe the first thing to stress is that government should be focused on consensus building and why we should do that. And because we have a lot of different actors, even in the government itself, and we have a Ministry of Finance who distribute budget, and Ministry of Transport that makes a lot of policies, and Ministry of Environment, and coordination issues and resources distribution issues are really important. And also, we have a collective the efforts made by the international cooperation. For example, in European context, we have a multilateral quota system for the freight transportation in the European territory. And when we allocate our quotas, we give some favors to those countries who really favor the eco-friendly lorries. For example, Euro 6 and at least Euro 5. So I think the kind of incentive system can also help develop this kind of the new schemes for the future. And when we try to convince people that we should go in this direction, basically we should not be really normative or prescriptive and even ideological. We need to have some concrete data and concrete evidence. And in that context, our 62 member countries finally succeeded in the making TCAT, so-called TCAT, Transport Climate Action Directorate, that was launched in last July this year. And it provides more than 60 measures the government can use to decarbonize transport sector. So now every measure the government can use, we can know quantifiable impact when we use these measures. So that's a really important directory endorsed by UNFCCC. And also from the broader perspective, I think transport sector should go beyond the transport. It sounds a little bit paradoxical, but the solution in the transport sector sometimes cannot be found in the transport sector itself. So that's why we need to broaden the cooperation with non-transport sectors like energy and even housing, even trade and tourism. And it's in this context that today is a really meaningful day for ITF and IEA and other stakeholders in these energy sectors, because we can do more cooperation in the future. So as Method announced, we launched it yesterday, this report, and this report is freely downloadable from our website. And in the interest of time, I will not go into the details of this research, but this concerns the regulations and standards for clean trucks and buses. So maybe at the later stage or later occasions, we might have an occasion to discuss further these issues. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Yang Tae Kim. I think this was a good summary, and also highlighting that the transport sector is not alone responsible, the energy sector neither, and many others have to be involved. And I think the ITF is doing a very good job here, and we have and can even reinforce our cooperation. My next speaker is Stephen Feng for NEO. He's the Chief Financial Officer and Head of Overseas Business. And I would like to give the floor to Stephen right now.
Thank you for introduction. This is Stephen for NEO. NEO positions itself as a premium smart EV maker. So our choice of the automotive powertrain technology is simply BEV. But we think the technology should be complemented with a suitable product design, a scalable infrastructure, and a sustainable business model. So new solution to BEV is battery swap design, plus battery swap stations, and offering battery as a service to our users. First, let me start from the product design. NEO uses the battery swap technology to decouple the battery from the car, so all of NEO's cars have the same interface to the battery, and all of the battery packs have the same dimension and a similar weight. So in short, the cars and the batteries are interchangeable between different NIO cars. Second, from the infrastructure's perspective, electricity transmission cost is the cheapest among all fuels. So we think charging must be the most efficient way. However, no matter how fast the supercharging can be, the users now still need to wait at least half an hour before the battery is charged full. And fast charging is also not good for the battery's life. So NIO's battery system is chargeable, swappable, and upgradable. So first, if our users have the chance to charge the cars, please charge it. But also, if in case that they want to use the cars to charge the cars very fast, our battery swap stations offer a very convenient choice for our users. And NIO has already built 148 battery swap stations in China, and we plan to build another 300 at the end of next year. In the end, if you look at the penetration rate of EV in China and EU, it is still around 5 to 8%. A big down payment is still an entry barrier for EV buyers. So NIO launched its innovative battery as a service subscription model on August 20th. The base model allows new users to purchase electric cars and subscribe the usage of the battery packs separately. The users can enjoy the vehicle purchase price with RMB 70,000 deduction of the original price and pay a monthly subscription fee of 980 RMB for the battery pack. In short, for NIO, I think if we can sell more EVs and elevate the EV penetration, we are making our contribution to decarbonization. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to explain to us the contribution NIO can do for electrification and decarbonization. My last speaker on the list right now is Angela Hültberg. She works for INGA, or formerly IKEA, and she's the head of sustainable mobility. Angela, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. So at Inca Group, or IKEA, as you may know us better, we see last mile as a crucial segment to address. The IKEA vision is and has always been to create a better everyday life for the many people. And what we see now are cities that are polluted and clogged. And due to the boom of e-commerce, not in the least now, as a result of COVID, with people ordering more and more online, we see this segment getting even worse. There's not a positive trend when it comes to last mile deliveries. So it's not getting better, and we need to really address it because the cities are not safe and sustainable for people to live in. So we pledged to have 100% electric home deliveries by 2025. And we got going. I think last mile is a natural place to start, a beachhead, as Karlstad said earlier, because we don't need the range. We can have overnight charging. We see it as a perfect place to start. And so far, we've deployed electric vehicles in 19 of our markets, just added a few in Russia, in St. Petersburg, actually, so very happy about that. Roughly 50% of all home deliveries in China are already electric. And of course, as we've worked through the challenges we've faced, and we've faced quite a few challenges, we try to address the barriers one by one. Most recently, we found in Europe specifically, there was a lack of suitable vehicles. We just couldn't find the vehicles we needed for our type of operations. And rather than waiting for someone to develop it, we actually went straight to the OEMs and co-created vehicles that we could then pilot and test. So IKEA is not a fleet owner. We work with third parties for transport services. But even so, we found that we have to engage in this and we have to collaborate. As many have said earlier, we cannot do this alone. So we need to co-create. And in this case, together with Renault and MAN, we were able to develop vehicles suitable for our operations. And we're hoping that the rest of the industry can also benefit from this, because if it works for IKEA, then chances are it will work for other companies as well. Now, we operate in 30 different markets, and policy differs. We have some markets with incentives, we have some markets with bans. From a business perspective, what I can say to all you policymakers is that anything that helps the business case is good. What I would like to really underline, though, is the need for policy now to legislate not on technology, but on the result we want. If zero emission is what we want, then legislate around zero emission and not specific technology, because things are happening fast in this segment. And also harmonize. Today we see different legislation in different parts within countries even. So from a business perspective, it'd be much, much easier if we could see consistent and harmonized legislation, at least within country borders, but preferably over larger areas as well, like the EU, for example. I think tech is great. One of the questions was what is happening, but I think it's more important to remember that we have technology now that we need to deploy and not sit and wait for new technology to come and save us and do this for us. We need to take the best available options on the market, deploy them, and then work together and collaborate to make it better if we want to see rapid transformation of the transport industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Very good to hear the engagement also of the big Swedish company internationally, obviously operating. With that, looking at the time, I'm sorry we wouldn't have any time for follow-up questions right now. I hope we can have that debate either in another stage or hopefully one day in person. But I would like to thank very much all the panelists to give us their insight on the future decarbonization of heavy-duty vehicles, which is a very important part of our work and of the decarbonization to net zero in all our countries and globally. So thank you very much for all of you to come in with your ideas and focus areas and recommendation. I will now go to our last session, and this is pretty much looking ahead. We are all very much aware, and some of you have mentioned the difficulties which COVID-19 have put on the transport sector, obviously also on the health and overall economic sector, but in particular also on some of the transport sector, energy and others. So it has been a very difficult year, challenging year in many ways, but we want also to look a little bit on what had been achieved in the EVI, but what we heard, and going even further. So the next decade, going to 2030, how will it look? What is the success story which we hopefully can celebrate in 10 years? In spite of this all challenging times right now, I hope to hear a little bit more from our distinguished speaker for that very last session. We have 3 speakers, and I would like to start with Mr. Markus Pellenur, who is our Group Manager Strategy for Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority. So we all know that New Zealand has been taking a lot of actions on e-mobility, and you have been a very valuable member of the EVI since few years now. So could you please tell us a little bit more of your government's priorities in New Zealand, and very much welcome to, I guess it's early morning for you, to the debate right now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Great, thank you. It's great to be here, and yes, a little early morning, but it's such a pleasure and honor to be with friends and colleagues. The impact of COVID-19 on sustainable mobility in New Zealand has given us a lot to be thankful for and some big opportunities to do better. For example, the use of public transport in New Zealand has dropped following COVID-19, with the use of active transport and private vehicles recovering much more strongly. Thankfully, it doesn't look like the impact of COVID has dampened people's likelihood of buying an EV. So while the number of EV registrations per month did drop significantly at the height of our lockdown, these have almost recovered to pre-COVID levels, although adamantly, it's still a very small percentage of our fleet. So we have a way to go with respect to that. New Zealand's focus for the next year will be developing our emissions reduction plan. And that's so that we can meet our goal of a net zero net carbon emissions by 2050. A key element of this will be the transport energy strategy, which will set out a range of transport policies that will be implemented to meet that target. Work on the transport sector strategy has started now, and we expect to be finished in December 2021. Looking ahead and thinking about the past, the increase in availability and capability of EVs in the market for us is something that we were proud of. We can spend now less time convincing people that EVs are a good idea and instead focus on removing barriers to uptake, such as exploring ways to bring down the purchase price or to optimize the rollout of charging fleets. In New Zealand in 2017, we introduced a vision for public fast charging stations every 75 kilometers of our state highway network. This vision is now over 95% complete, and work is underway to update the vision to better reflect how EVs are and will be used in the country, which is a really proud achievement for us. We're also working to make sure that charging infrastructure is smart. So as well as being able to integrate into the electricity system without overloading our generation, it will also help manage or move our peak demand. What can we celebrate in 10 years? Well, we really hope that electric vehicles will be a viable option for a much wider selection of section of society, and that will be increasing that portion to the secondhand market. For us, this is when emission reduction benefits will be realized on a much larger scale. Thank you.
Thank you for your news from New Zealand. It's true also in our analysis that with COVID-19, there were a lot of damage, I would say, on the energy and transport sector, but EVs have relatively been resilient. And if you tell us that you nearly reach again pre-COVID levels, this is in a way good news, even though we have much more to do to make it happen and reduce barriers, price to high prices and so on. So thank you very much for your insight. Then I would like to turn to our next speaker, because as I announced in the very beginning, we are very happy to welcome Poland and Portugal as new members of the EVI. And I'm very happy and pleased to have Dr. Simon Bielinski, who is the director from the Ministry of Climate in Poland. So, as I said, we welcome Poland as a new member, but maybe you can tell us a little bit what is your expectations and how do you see the EV market in the next 10 years also in Poland, which I know is also one of the leading countries. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here today. I'm very thrilled that Poland will join to the EV initiative. Because for us, deployment of electric vehicles is a challenge, but also is a great opportunity to give a new momentum to our economies and to decrease the carbon footprint in the transport sector. So I'm very pleased that today I have a chance to say a few words about Poland. Currently in Poland we have a very comprehensive legal framework which regulates the low emission market, the electromobility market, because we have on one hand we have a strategy, national policy framework of the deployment of infrastructure of alternative fuel, and on the other hand we have a national law on electromobility and on alternative fuel. This year, because of COVID, but not only, we also introduced some instruments to support the purchase of the electric vehicles. this instrument is for the normal people, for regular person, but also for the enterprise. And we try to support also the light duty, the electric light duty vehicles, to support these entrepreneurs to buy commercial light duty electric vehicles. And but we already know that the development of electromobility requires new solution incentives, because we are still waiting for the price of battery to go down, and this also makes that the price of electric vehicle will go down. So, but we now still working on the revision of our national law about electromobility to give more support for electric vehicles. And we prepared someone we may call 10 solutions for electromobility. It's there are different kind of incentives, like incentives for the cities to introduce low emission zone in the center of the cities, and also some tax incentives for purchase of electric vehicles that we would like to introduce, not maybe this year but next year, to support the development of the market. Because in the last 5 years, more than 1,000 charging stations have been constructed, and we also have more than 10,000 electric vehicles. Maybe it's not a very big number, but for our market, which is mostly the second-hand market of cars, this is a quite achievement, and we are hoping that in the future it also will rise. Also, one of the main producers of battery to the electric vehicles, of electric buses. So our intention is to develop further this sector. We also try to incentivize all production facilities in Poland, because we have a good distribution network, well-qualified staff, and attractive location in the supply chain. We also well experienced in recent development initiatives, because we have, as I said, good qualified engineering personnel. So by 2025, we expected that the charging infrastructure will cover all the big cities in Poland and all the trans-European transport corridors crossing the Poland. And we also now would like to start developing infrastructure with smaller cities in rural areas. That we see that there is a need to develop the infrastructure of the electromobility, not only in the big cities but also in smaller areas of Poland. And we have some ambitious plan on electromobility valley as some kind of industrial scientific cluster. So that's our plan for next 10 years, and I believe that it's in accordance with the developing of electromobility market in the world. Thank you for that, and thank you for invitation to the EVI.
Thank you very much, Simon, and thank you very much for sharing your views and the developments in Poland. It's very much in line what are the priorities of this initiative. So I think your input to the debate in EVI meetings is very, very much welcome. So thank you very much. And now, to close our panel, and last but not least, I would like to ask Shayla Watson. She's the Director of Environment of the FIA Foundation, and I would like to ask you the same question about the achievements about the last 10 years, but much more looking forward the next decade. What can it bring to EVs? Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. As we've heard all day in this excellent discussion, there have been substantial advances for EVs in the last 10 years. There's no doubt. We have over 7 million electric cars on the roads around the world, which is great news, but we know it's not enough. It's a tiny drop in the ocean when you look at the global car fleet. Of course, I know we're going beyond that and looking at other aspects of the fleet, but there too, the numbers are not huge. And so I think in reflecting on what we're now learning about sustainable mobility, as a philanthropic foundation, that's our role in this discussion. We've always sought to support the transition towards low carbon mobility through financially supporting a range of different activities that we think help to underpin the kind of change we need to see in the next 10 years. And actually we held a webinar earlier in the COVID lockdown and discussed these ideas with our partners to see what they felt were some sort of the key aspects of what we all need to do together in the coming months and years. And I think 3 things emerged from that, which I'll share with you now. First of all, I think we all know most countries need capacity building support, need exposure to good practice, and need resources to enable them to face some of the challenges and change that are going on. And that's particularly, although not exclusively, the case in the Global South. One of the initiatives we work with, the Global Fuel Economy Initiative, which is the only partnership of its nature in this field, has actually been working with around 70 countries as they develop their policy frameworks in support of greater vehicle efficiency and the transition to EVs. And those frameworks, the IEA, are very clear. You're a member of this initiative, are a vital underpinning because they send the long-term signals to the auto industry and to consumers and set that long-term framework, which Angela from IKEA just mentioned, that is needed to see real change. And GFBI has set very demanding targets for CO2 across the various aspects of the fleet, and our work in supporting countries is bearing fruit. So around the world, Sri Lanka, the Philippines, Ukraine, Ghana, Egypt, Peru, we've been actively engaged in supporting fiscal and regulatory change to favour hybrid and electric vehicles and to give the technical support that countries really need to make change. So that's one element, I think, which we need more of, and it's never well resourced. And as a philanthropy, we do our best, but I would encourage others to step in and support that sort of work. Secondly, I think there is a desperate need for good and independent data and evidence. So again, from exposing the gross emissions vehicles on our roads through a project that we support called the Real Urban Emissions Initiative, TRUE. This is an on-road vehicle testing initiative, which in London saw vehicles 18 times the limit in NOx and was part of the evidence base which led the Mayor of London to introduce better rewards for electrification of our cab system. So data can be pivotal in changing policy and also debunking myths. We're supporting some work at the moment looking at the most commonly held myths about electrification. You know, they take too long to charge. Well, this research is starting to show that if you've got time for a cup of coffee, you've got time to recharge your vehicle. It's not dissimilar. And this is all work we're funding with experts, we're not experts, to address key concerns, support the brave policymakers, and I think we should be acknowledging that policymakers are very brave in this field, particularly our mayors, out there pushing for change at a time when there is great uncertainty. And of course, this also puts important information in front of consumers as they make choices in the market, and that's vital too. And then third and finally, I think we have to learn to look beyond our own expertise and make links to other key issues. So we always see climate as a major driver for the work we do, but we know too that air quality and health are driving demands for transport change as well, and all the more so in this COVID period where dirty air is directly linked to the severity of the illness. So we support work testing air quality around schools, establishing the vital role of renewables in empowering our chain mobility, and of course also promoting those modes that don't use much carbon, if any at all, or generate much carbon, like walking and cycling. So transport doesn't operate in a bubble, and I think in the debate about electrification we have to make common cause with other people, and I think EVI is incredibly well placed and a good example of how we can do this. And I feel very optimistic that with some of those aspects in place and the energy that's in the sector, that we will see great change in the next 10 years. So optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila. And I think you nearly gave already the concluding words. I mean, I can only share this optimism. I mean, optimism for the clean energy transitions, for the e-mobility, for all the good reasons. We are now globally in a difficult situation, in a challenging situation, but I think there's always a bit of hope there with the engagement of governments, what we heard right now. Thank you, New Zealand, Poland, and all the others who have spoken before. The partners we are working with, the companies, I think there is a good sense of realism, but also optimism, that also e-mobility, EVs, but also the heavy-duty electrification and decarbonization will go ahead. We need long-term targets, objectives, but also the commitment from all players to reduce the obstacles which are still there, high prices, standards, new technologies to become on the markets. So I think we got a very good picture today, and I'm very happy about that session. I will conclude maybe with 3 concluding points. So first of all, EVI, we have celebrated today the 10th anniversary, but I'm quite sure this active and lively debate will continue at least for the next 10 years. So thank you very much for continuation between governments and all players on this important topic. Secondly, the IEA will continue support EVI as a coordinator, and we are very pleased to work with all our members and partners. It was just raised, one of our strengths is obviously the data and evidence, and the global electric vehicle outlook is one element to have the data and evidence to build our policies on. And my very last point is to thank the CEM-11 hosts, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, for the opportunity to host this event, for all the IT support. But I would also like to thank my colleagues here, Per and Marine, for this excellent preparation. And I want to thank all the speakers and everyone who listened to the live stream. With that, optimism for the next decade, I would like to conclude this session and hope to see you soon. All the very best.